into the Week 9 edition of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is episode number 70 of the Adjusted Line Play Report, where we take a deep dive into the play in the trenches to determine the game script and player outcomes. The show is presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman, and you can find myself over on Twitter at ToddZilla1337. And you can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. All right, folks, Week 9, my apologies. It's been since Tuesday of Week 7 since I've gotten this Adjusted Line Play Report video recorded. So back on schedule for a few weeks here for you folks, and hopefully we can go out there and win some money together. As always, we're going to try to kick it off with the highest scoring game on the main slate, then just go from the highest scoring to the lowest scoring, give you all of the analysis for each and every game. So, 3 to 5 minutes for each game, get you up to speed, and hopefully you can go out and make those start-sit decisions and those prop bets and everything else that goes along with that to make money off of others that you're playing in fantasy football, or those bookies that want to take all of our money otherwise. So let's just kick it off here with our number one game on the slate. We have Dallas heading into Atlanta, two high-powered offenses with some pretty poor defenses in general. We'll see how this shakes out, but we have a 51.5 Vegas game total here. Again, number one on the slate. Atlanta actually 3-point home favorites here. So that gives them a team implied total of 27.25, which is actually the third best on the slate. Two more teams higher than that, so pretty interesting. And then Dallas as the underdogs here at 24.25 are number 10 in terms of team implied total on the slate. And I believe this is out of 26 teams on this main slate. Let's get into it, folks. An interesting one here. We have Dallas, number 8 in offensive pass protection. Atlanta, number 32 in the defensive pass rush. Telling me Atlanta's not going to generate a lot of sacks in this particular game, which is good for Dallas to have time to throw the ball. The pass DVOA is even up, which tells me studs eat in this scenario. But with Dallas having time to throw, I think Dak finds his preferred targets, which are CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson. I think those two are going to have a very good game, and they should be pretty explosive when they do catch the ball based off of what Atlanta has been doing on on defense against the pass. Pretty atrocious, giving up lots of fantasy points there. So expect a good pass game here from Dallas. Obviously, Dak is going to be in play for for quarterback stacks as well. Now getting into the run blocking, Dallas 18, Atlanta 18 in run stopping. Even up, studs will eat in this scenario. We do have no studs really on Dallas anymore. We have Rico Dowdle, who I think will end up getting the most here, but a three-headed beast between Zeke, Dowdle, and now Delvin Cook. So keep that in mind. 18 for Atlanta's run DVOA as well, but Dallas number 30. So not very explosive, not getting a ton of plays, either way, fumbling, not getting touchdowns, you name it. Dallas not very good running the ball. To me, this is indicative. They might be okay on a play-by-play basis, getting positive yardage, but shorter gains. And then over here, going to have time to throw the ball, and they're going to be otherwise more successful than they have been in the past, and that's how they're going to move the ball. I think you could probably even go Jalen Tolbert as a dart throw in this particular matchup, as he's been proving himself to be a little bit better than we expected going into this season. So now on the Atlanta side, they're number 10 in offensive pass protection, number 9 in offensive pass DVOA, both in the top 10. Dallas, these are red-green matchups. Dallas, number 24 in pass rush, number 28 in defensive pass DVOA. Indicative that Atlanta will have plenty of time to throw the ball, and then they'll be also very explosive on their plays in which they do throw it. So very, very good for the offense here. Could be a back and forth game, especially if Dallas is able to keep up in this. Kirk Cousins also in play. Atlanta's got a plethora of weapons there between Bijan Robinson gets involved in the pass game. We have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. Those are your main targets. If you want to get a really deep dart throw, you could look at Ray McLeod. He's getting some run as well. But getting into the run blocking side, Dallas has been really terrible on run defense. We have Atlanta number 5 in run blocking, number 4 in run DVOA. So these are even better matchups. Dallas, number 31 in stopping the run, number 30 in defensive run DVOA. I expect Atlanta to be very explosive in this particular matchup. Based off of this, I wouldn't be shocked to see them put up in between 30, maybe 40 points in this, suggesting that this 27.25 may be a little low. If you can bet team totals, I would say they hit the over on this. Dallas side, I think they should be able to be okay on offense and kind of keep pace, especially if that pass game is humming. They're getting plenty of time to throw the ball. I don't see Dak making as many mistakes, and CeeDee Lamb and company kind of eating their way through the Atlanta defense. Other thing going in the favor for this Vegas game total, maybe hitting the over. I know you had about a 70% chance if the game was above 50 for a Vegas game total that it actually didn't hit the over. I think this is one where it will. We have overall pace of play for Dallas, number 1, neutral situation, number 5. Then Atlanta, number 4, in overall pace of play. And number 2 in offensive neutral situation pace of play. So 2 top 5 teams in offensive neutral situation. A lot of these obviously in the green for Dallas, and then Atlanta, the only one they're not in the top 10 is when they're leading by 8 plus. They're 14th in the league when that's the case. So they might be kind of more league average if they are winning in this particular matchup. I do see that being the case for them. But yeah, otherwise Dallas, when they're trailing, top 3 in the league. When they're trailing by 7 plus, offensive neutral situation, top 5. So should be a shootout. I fully would be comfortable betting the over in this, betting the team total over on Atlanta as well. And then obviously prop bets, I'm not sure where they're at, but somebody like Bijan Robinson, if it's anything under 100 yards rushing and receiving total, smash the over on that. I think he hits that pretty easily. If you want an anytime touchdown for Tyler Algier as a kind of a modifier on top of some of your other bets, I think that could get you some money as well. All right, number 2 game total on the slate here. Miami heading into Buffalo. This is a 49.5 Vegas game total. Been bet down a little bit from, I think, earlier at 50.5 this week. Buffalo 6-point home favorites on that total, giving them a 27.75 team implied total out of that, second best on the slate. And then Miami as 6-point underdogs at 21.75 for their team implied total, 16th best on the slate. Getting into the Miami side, they're number 26 in offensive pass protection, number 30 on pass DVOA. Keep in mind, Tua has been out for a lot of the season. I think that is part of the reason this is so poor, is because of the 4 or 5 games that they had with him out, unfortunately not doing much. So that could be a little bit facetious in terms of the numbers. Buffalo, though, on defensive pass rush, number 14 and number 9 in defensive pass DVOA. Buffalo has been very good at limiting Miami since they've played them, so maybe expect that to continue. Tyreek Hill might struggle in this. Buffalo has been able to shut him down as a player. Doesn't matter if he's been with Kansas City or in Miami or where, but they've been doing a good job as a defense on him. Run blocking, though, Miami number 24, number 24. These are red-green matchups. Buffalo number 5 and number 3 on the run DVOA. This one is one of those interesting ones where the DVOA and stuff on the adjusted line play report doesn't necessarily match the fantasy production that's been going on. So with that being said, Buffalo gives up a lot of pass catching to the running backs. And thus the running backs, they're top 3 in terms of fantasy points given up to the running back position. And I believe they're actually top 10 in a lot of the categories for passing. So their defense is one of the best against the pass, tight ends, quarterbacks, wide receivers, but one of the worst against running backs. Running backs get a lot of receptions against them. Devon Achane, very good at that ever since Tua has started with Achane and Tua starts. Achane's over 20 fantasy points per game, and I think he's averaging like 6 receptions per game. So with that being said, I don't know what Devon Achane's receptions lines is at, but if it's anything like 4.5 or worse, 4.5 or less than that, I would say bet the over. I think he gets 5 or 6 receptions in this game minimum, and then probably racks up quite a few points in the fantasy department. I do think with them being underdogs. Just based off of that, they're probably going to be in pass situations a little bit more often, and then trying to get the ball out a little bit quicker due to Tua's medical history. And then this matchup, 14 versus 26, a little bit in the favor of Buffalo, suggestive that they could get after the quarterback here and generate some pressure on Tua, and need to get the ball out a little bit quicker to guys like Achane. Now on the Buffalo side, for pass protection, number 1 in offensive pass protection, not taking a lot of sacks. Miami, number 27 in pass rush. Should have a ton of time here for Buffalo to throw the ball. And then on the pass DVOA side, Buffalo number 3, Miami 23rd. Another red-green matchup here, so some interesting red-green matchups to begin the adjusted line play report in these first 2 games. Highly indicative that Buffalo should dominate in the pass game here. They have plenty of weapons between Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, the rookie Keon Coleman getting involved. They also have Dalton Kincaid. James Cook can receive out of the backfield. So lots and lots of options there in the pass game. All in all, to say, hey, it's probably likely that we have the quarterback who's distributing the ball to all those people having a good game. On the run blocking side, also a good matchup for Buffalo, number 6 and number 5 in the run blocking and run DVOA, so top 10 there for them. And Miami, number 13 in stopping the run, so a little bit above average in terms of making sure that the running back doesn't get too far out there. And then the defensive run DVOA here for Miami, number 28, highly indicative that they're giving up a lot of explosion to the running back position. James Cook could be pretty valuable there as well. So all in all, it just looks like Buffalo is going to be able to get a ton of points here against Miami, which unfortunately for them probably causes them to go into pass mode a little bit more than the run mode, which is good for Devon Achane, but I just don't know outside of that if this pass game is going to be super successful. I think Achane will have a good one, but Waddle and Hill, they might be fine, but I wouldn't bet on them having a ceiling type game based off of this. And number 3 game on the main slate here, the Rams going into Seattle. The Rams are actually 1-point road favorites on a 48 Vegas game total, so they're best on the slate there. With that Vegas line of a -1 for the Rams, that's a 24.5 team implied total. That's actually only number 9, despite this being the 3rd best game total in the week. The Rams only the 9th best team implied total based off of this. Seattle at 23.5 is the 12th best team implied total. Now on the Rams side, offensive pass protection number 18, a little bit below average. Seattle been able to get some sacks at 7. I expect them to be able to get a little bit of pressure here on the Rams, but they can get the ball out quick with Puka. It sounds like he was injured, but not considered to be serious, so I expect him to play. But Cooper Kupp in this, also very good at getting open right away. Kyren Williams, decent in the pass game, so I think those are all options. And then getting into the run side, we have offensive run blocking number 16 for the Rams, and then top 10 in run DVOA at number 10. Seattle, one of the worst run defenses at number 29 in stopping the run, and then number 21 in the defensive run DVOA. We should see Kyren Williams have a very good game on the ground based off of this information, combined with some time to throw the ball and otherwise neutral here for the offensive pass DVOA. I think Rams offense should be just fine. Kyren Williams likely scores a touchdown in this, so an anytime touchdown from him, if you're putting those parlays together, I think is a good chance here. Rams move the ball. I think he can score it on the Seattle defense. And then they are technically favorites, but could be an otherwise back and forth affair based off of what Vegas is saying. On the Seattle side, they're number 14 in offensive pass protection. The Rams number 20, slightly in the favor of Seattle. Nothing to really write home about here, but they should have a standard amount of time to get the ball out. Seattle, though, number 11 in pass DVOA, so pretty decent there. The Rams 27th, one of the worst teams against the pass this season. We have DK Metcalf already ruled out, so expect Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba to get a lot of run here. I think Noah Fant was also ruled out already, so really going to be hyper-focused on those two in the pass game, and maybe Zach Charbonnet or somebody getting a little bit more involved in the pass game. I'm not even sure who the backup tight end there is in Seattle, but expect a heavy funnel towards Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba, definitely decent targets in this, especially if the Rams are going to be putting up points. Seattle passes it more than anybody else in the league. Those two should see a massive amount of targets. Now in the run game, Rams have been bad there, 27 across the board for run stopping and run DVOA. Seattle 28th in run blocking, but 15th in the run DVOA, so been pretty productive fantasy-wise for running the ball. It looks like they should be just fine running the ball. I know they do take some losses here and there, which is why their offensive run blocking is so poor. That's kind of what Kenneth Walker's MO is, get stuff behind the line a bunch, but then also rip off a bunch of 10-plus yard runs. I think that continues here where they're going to be pretty explosive, but they actually might move the ball a little bit better than they're used to, not getting stuffed so often, be able to move the chains, and then with the pass game being a decent one, Seattle should be able to move the ball despite DK Metcalf and Noah Fant being out. I'd expect them to be able to keep pace with the Rams here. And then Seattle's pace of play is number 3 overall and number 3 in neutral situations. So they're top 3. The Rams a little bit above average there, but around average. So nothing too crazy, but I could see this game also shooting out with some plus matchups for the offense in both situations. So keep that in mind. I know they're 9th and 12th on the actual team implied totals, but they do have certain pathways to have a blowout back and forth game here. So very, very good top 3 games here so far that we've looked at. Really looks like we're going to have some explosion on offense this week. All right, next best game on the slate, number 4, Detroit heading into Green Bay. Detroit is 2.5-point road favorites here, so 2 road favorites in a row. 47.5 Vegas game total, just below that last one. The team implied totals here, Detroit at 25 is actually the 8th best. Green Bay at 22.5 is the 14th best, so just a notch below that last game here for both of those teams. Detroit offense number 25 in offensive pass protection, a little surprising there. Green Bay 15th at the pass rush. Slight favor there for Green Bay's pass defense, suggesting that they might get some sacks here. Jordan Love probably going to be a game time decision with his groin. Keep an eye on that. Actually, don't keep an eye on that for this portion. This is for Detroit. Probably going to need to get the ball out a little bit quicker here against Green Bay. That's going to favor the tight ends, the running backs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So expect Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Laporta to have a little bit better games here in this week. And then the pass DVOA is pretty even, 10 versus 12 in the favor of the defense for Green Bay. One of those where, hey, studs eat. All 3 of those guys that I mentioned, Laporta, Gibbs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, all studs. So, again, focus on those guys for the pass game. The run blocking, though, much better matchup here for Detroit. They're number 1 across the board in running the ball. And then Green Bay a little bit above average, slightly at number 14 and number 12 for the run categories. I expect Detroit to be able to run the ball against Green Bay and put up some pretty big numbers there. So again, Gibbs gets involved obviously there, but Montgomery should see quite a bit of success on the ground against Green Bay. And depending on how Green Bay's offense is doing, this could really drive how they end up moving the ball in the game. You can see down here, both teams very good at not trailing. So Detroit number 3 in time spent trailing, which is very good. Green Bay just behind them. And then obviously game time leading, Detroit number 2, Green Bay number 3. So one of the best teams at leading. So if Detroit gets out to the lead and Green Bay struggling with Love not being in there or whatever the case may be, expect that run game to really dominate. And you could see Gibbs and Montgomery both with multi-touchdown games on that particular scenario. Green Bay, though, number 3 in offensive pass protection. Detroit, number 19. Suggestive that Green Bay should have some time to throw the ball here, whether that's Love. I would expect a lot more passes to come out if Love is playing versus Malik Willis, but expect some time nonetheless for whoever is back there. And then the pass DVOA, Detroit number 4, actually, and Green Bay number 5 on offense. One of those studs eat situations. Who the heck's the stud on Green Bay? I honestly don't know. It's kind of a pick your poison of who you would like to start. If Jordan Love doesn't start, I don't like this game at all in terms of the pass game. Malik Willis is serviceable, but I don't think he can carry a bunch of people, and that's a situation where I'd probably just stay away from any of those Green Bay pass catchers in that scenario. Maybe focus a little bit more on the run game. Now, Green Bay in the run game, number 13 in offensive run blocking. Detroit has been one of the better ones at number 9 and number 8. Green Bay's run DVOA pretty good at number 6. So kind of even here, one of those studs eat type of games. Whether or not you think Josh Jacobs is a stud at this point in his career, debatable, but this does look like the better of the two matchups. The worst of the two matchups. The pass game here, they should have some time. A little bit closer there in the DVOA aspect, but really not looking like the offense from Green Bay will be super good based off of this info. Probably not going to target any Green Bay players in DFS or any sort of prop bets unless it's an under of some sort, so keep that in mind. Both teams do play slow. For this reason, I think Detroit over here maybe struggle a little bit on the pass game side a little bit, but the run game very effective. They do play slow. Green Bay also overall pace of play is slow. I'd expect this to maybe not hit this Vegas game total of 47.5, especially if Malik Willis is in there. It's just going to be a slog, and you're not going to get much for scoring in this particular matchup. So bet the under. I think if I'm going to do anything in this game, betting wise, it's going to be bet the under. Right now at 47.5. Malik Willis gets in there. I wouldn't be shocked to see this get down to 44 by the end of the weekend if we get news on Saturday that Love just isn't going to play in this matchup. So fifth best game on the slate here is Sunday Night Football, so including this for those people who play on FanDuel. It's a 46.5 Vegas game total, number 5 on the slate for FanDuel anyway. The 5.5-point home favorite Vikings would imply that their team total should be 26 at the end of this game. Indianapolis at 20.5 based off of that. So Minnesota 5.5-point home favorites. 6th best team implied total on the slate. Indianapolis down at 19. Indianapolis number 6 in offensive pass protection. Minnesota 11 in that pass rush category. A little bit suggestive that maybe they won't take some sacks there in Indianapolis. They do have Joe Flacco starting here and giving them their best chance to win, supposedly. So keep that in mind. The offensive pass DVOA 21, Minnesota number 1 in that category. I'd be very, very interested in the Vikings defense if Anthony Richardson was playing, just because I think you're going to lead to a lot of mistakes with the way that the Vikings play defense and all of the confusion and different looks that they can make an uncomfortable life for that quarterback. So I think with Flacco in there, he's a little bit better able to handle that, but keep that in mind. It might be it's kind of a 50-50 shot in terms of if they're really going to struggle or if it doesn't really bother them. It's been more of the latter the last couple of games, but they're still number 1 in pass DVOA, so keep that in mind. This is heavily in the favor of Minnesota's defense in terms of how good they're going to be passing the ball. They just might have a few less sacks than otherwise expected. On the run blocking side, Indianapolis 31, Minnesota 16th in stopping the run. That's heavily in the favor of Minnesota. And then the run DVOA, Indianapolis number 11, just outside the top 10, but Minnesota number 1 in the run DVOA as well, so not giving up a ton there. I know Minnesota, they say, is a pass funnel, so even though they're number 1 in pass DVOA, they do give up quite a bit of fantasy points to quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, and the such, but the run game is really where the fantasy points stop, so Jonathan Taylor might be a fade for some people this week. Certainly won't be playing him in DFS based off of this matchup, and I would expect that to be true in this particular game. So Minnesota offense, number 29, pass protection, pretty bad in terms of taking sacks. Indianapolis 28, not getting after the quarterback. Sam Darnold probably has a little bit of extra time in this to get the ball out, which is good for him. Justin Jefferson going to be very good. Jordan Addison could be in play. They're getting Hawkinson back, so that's probably just going to open up the entire offense. Sounds like Hawkinson's not even going to be limited snap count or anything. He's just going to play the whole game. Aaron Jones gets involved in the pass game too. He's very good. So I'd expect the offense to be very good here, especially if they're not under pressure. Minnesota's offensive pass DVOA is number 4, Indy 26. It's a huge favor for Minnesota in the pass game. And then the run game is also decent. So Minnesota number 10 in the run blocking, Indianapolis 21st in defensive run stopping. big favor there for Minnesota to be successful on a play-in and play-out basis. And then the run DVOA for Minnesota 18, Indianapolis 13. So a flip-flop there in terms of how well that's going. But Minnesota just not scoring a ton of touchdowns on the rush attempts. So I think that's partly why this run DVOA is lower. They're not getting those touchdowns to boost that up somewhat artificially based off of the outcome of the play. So keep that in mind. I think the run game should be just fine. The pass game should be very explosive. Indianapolis looking like they might struggle a little bit. I think this is a pretty good line for Minnesota at home. I wouldn't be shocked if you say, hey, Minnesota probably going to cover that 5.5. It's going to be a bigger blowout than 6 points or 5 points, I guess, in this particular matchup. I think that's how it's going to go. Minnesota should be just fine. Feel free to start. Darnold stacks, I think, would be viable in here. If you think Minnesota is just going to be up a ton, you can certainly look into Aaron Jones as a person who might score a few touchdowns this week. So another game at number 5, tied for the 5th best on the slate, is Denver at Baltimore at that 46.5 Vegas game total. This is Baltimore up 9.5 at home on Denver. That team implied total then for Baltimore is all the way up at 28, which is the number 1 on the main slate. Denver at 18.5, indicative of the 24th best team implied total at 18.5 points there. So kind of interesting seeing this line as big as it is. Denver's been playing better recently. Baltimore surprising struggles against Las Vegas and Cleveland, who were otherwise pretty terrible teams. Who knows? Denver in this situation, number 2 in offensive pass protection, not taking a ton of sacks. Baltimore number 18 in the pass rush, also struggling in the sack category. I wouldn't expect Denver to get sacked a bunch in this game. Pass DVOA, Denver 23, that's red. Baltimore a pass funnel at number 25. I think that's a good matchup here for Denver. I think they're going to be otherwise a little bit more explosive in the pass game than they had been to start this season, and don't expect some sacks. So Cortland Sutton, probably the best option here from Denver's pass game, but don't be shocked if you see like little Jordan Humphrey and those guys get involved. Mims, Franklin, those guys could get involved in this particular matchup, but Sutton really the one that I pay most attention to in this matchup. Now on the run blocking side, not as good. Denver number 11, Baltimore 7 in stopping the run, and Denver number 19 in run DVOA. Baltimore at number 5, indicative that Denver probably going to struggle in the run department, be okay in the pass department. It's not particularly great for their passing, but in these scenarios, I know they're not going to be particularly leading based out of this Vegas line, but they might attempt quite a few field goals in Baltimore, provided the weather conditions aren't crazy. Don't be shocked if we see Denver attempt 3 or 4 field goals in this. Baltimore side, number 5 in pass protection. Denver number 2 in the pass rush. Expect Lamar to be under a little bit of duress, especially with this pass DVOA for Denver being number 5. I know Baltimore is number 1 in that category. They've been very good in that recently. But Denver is a different beast on defense. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle for them. Players probably not going to be open as much. So I think this is going to lead to some extra Lamar rush attempts in this. I'm not sure what his rush line is at in terms of attempts or yards, but I think he goes over in both those, or has a good chance, depending on what that line is. But 50 yards rushing, I think is certainly on the table. 8 rush attempts, certainly on the table for him in this particular matchup. I don't think he's going to find his receivers open very often. They did just sign Deontay Johnson, but that could just lead to a little bit more confusion on on offense, where people maybe not being where they should be on the routes, and a few more rush attempts here from Lamar. And then on the run blocking side, Baltimore number 9, Denver number 8. Pretty even there. Baltimore number 2 in run DVOA, Denver number 9. Slight favor here for Baltimore, but certainly interesting. This is a 46.5 game total. It's not crazy. 5th best on the slate. I'm not sure about Baltimore hitting this 28 team implied total based off of this. I think Denver's defense looks like they can handle Baltimore's offense. Probably going to be a lot closer than this 9.5 suggests. I think Denver's pass game could be okay in this. Baltimore might struggle. I'm not sure if I necessarily want to say for sure that this is an upset outright, but I think it's an upset alert. This 9.5, I don't think it's that far of a mismatch. I think this is going to be a close game throughout. You're going to be sweating if you're a Baltimore fan, and I think Denver, you're in for a good game against a good team. I think this is going to be a lot closer than what Vegas is suggesting here at 9.5. If you could, I would bet that Denver covers this 9.5 Vegas line. Wouldn't be shocked to see this game end within 3 or 4 points and be close throughout the entire matchup. Come down maybe to a field goal attempt. All right, and we had 2 games tied for number 7, 2 games tied for number 5. So the first of these number 7 games on the slate at 45.5 Vegas game total, so 1 point under what we were just looking at. First one, Las Vegas heading into Cincinnati. Cincinnati's 7-point home favorites. So even though they're the 7th best game total, we have Cincinnati at the 5th best team implied total on the slate at 26.25. Raiders at 19.25 are number 22, and I believe that's out of 26 teams. Vegas, right across the board on offense, really, really bad. Number 27 and 28 in the pass protection and pass DVOA, and 32 and 32 in the run categories. Just keep that in mind. Not been very good for them. Fortunately, they're facing a defense that has also not been very good. So Cincinnati, number 30 in the defense pass rush, not necessarily able to get home and get sacks against the quarterback. That might continue here. Expect Gardner Minshew to have a little bit of extra time to throw the ball in a particular matchup like this. Cincinnati, number 22 in the pass DVOA. Again, Vegas at 28. Slightly in the favor here of Cincinnati, but otherwise I think Vegas is going to find themselves more successful passing the ball than they otherwise have been this season. Should be okay moving the ball there. And then the run blocking, not very good, as I had said. Cincinnati a little bit right around average, but at number 17. And then number 25, it's a red matchup for them in the defensive run DVOA, but Vegas at 32. They might find it a little bit easier to run the ball, maybe a little bit more success running the ball, but I think Vegas can pass the ball. Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, I think, are going to be interesting plays. I would certainly feel comfortable starting them in my fantasy lineups for season-long stuff. I'm not sure about DFS in terms of a ceiling, but Gardner Minshew, if you play over on DraftKings, he's actually cheaper than some of the backup quarterbacks, like Jake Haener for New Orleans is more expensive than Gardner Minshew. I'm not sure what happened there, but Minshew, if you're playing DFS, he's super cheap. It's going to allow you to get to some of these higher end options for wide receivers, tight ends maybe if you want to do a Bowers and Minshew stack, certainly in play in this particular matchup, because I think Cincinnati's going to be able to put up points against Vegas and cause them to throw. So Cincinnati, number 16 in offensive pass protection, middle of the pack. Vegas, number 23 in the pass rush. With that being the case, I don't think Cincinnati is going to have difficulties with time and throwing the ball. We do have, I believe T. Higgins is out or doubtful. I can't remember which of those news blurbs came across, but unlikely that he's going to play. So keep that in mind. Usually when he doesn't play, we see a Mike Gesicki target bump. I think he kind of fills in there for T. Higgins, similar body build actually between those two. So maybe not a one-to-one replacement, I'm sure, but you could see him with the bump up in targets. Otherwise, Chase, Yoshavash, been pretty good at the beginning of the season when Higgins was out. Now in the pass, DVOA number 18, Vegas 17. Cincinnati number 8 and Vegas number 17, heavily in favor of Cincinnati here. Again, just indicative that the pass game should be pretty successful here for Cincinnati. On the run blocking side, Cincinnati number 23, Vegas number 11 in stopping. That looks like it's heavily in the favor of Vegas, but then the run DVOA for Vegas number 26, Cincinnati number 28. This really kind of a neutral or studs eat type of scenario. It really does look like Zach Moss is getting phased out of the offense. Chase Brown, actually I think Zach Moss now like doubtful for the game. He might be ruled out, but this is really wheels up for Chase. It sounds like Vegas does give up quite a few pass attempts to the running back, which was typically Moss's category. If he's out, I think Chase could see quite a few targets, 5-6 targets in this matchup as well. Very explosive in the run game. I think he can be explosive against this Vegas defense. Certainly somebody I'm willing to put in a DFS lineup, but I think he's going to be very, very good for a cash game I think he's just going to get you 16 to 20 opportunities. Could be very explosive with those. I'm not sure if his ceiling will be maxed out with how good the pass game is typically, but looking good for Cincinnati to score some points. And again, Vegas probably going to have to keep pace. So those pass game options certainly viable for Vegas. Now the other game tied for 7th on this main slate here is Jacksonville heading into Philadelphia. We have another big Vegas line and another, despite the game total being number 7, team implied total that is very good on this main slate. So Philadelphia, 7.5 point home favorites here on that 45.5 Vegas game total, giving them a team implied total of 26.5, 4th best on the slate. Jacksonville at 19 is 23rd best on the slate out of 26. Jacksonville side for offense, 13 and 13 in the pass categories. Philadelphia 8 and 15. So maybe able to get after the quarterback a little bit here. Maybe need to get the ball out a little bit quicker. Philadelphia, I'm not sure if they really get attacked in the slot terribly a ton, but I know they do get attacked in the slot there. So we do have a lot of injuries. We might not have Brian Thomas Jr. Playing. Keep an eye on that. It sounds like Gabe Davis dealing with a shoulder injury, likely to play, I think, but he's going to be banged up. And then we have Christian Kirk out for the rest of the season. We do still have Evan Ingram there. He basically plays in the slot. I think he's going to kill it in this game, especially if Jacksonville's trying to get the ball out a little bit quicker. I wouldn't be shocked to see him with 12 or 15 targets in this. That's something that I think you can attack on the prop bet lines, especially before Brian Thomas Jr. or Gabe Davis are ruled out. Keep an eye on that. He could be a monster target magnet in this particular game. And then they do have Parker Washington there. I think he could get involved in the pass game here. Kind of plays slot receiver as well. If you're in the Scott Fish Bowl, he does return kicks lately, and I think that is an option for you to start in a matchup like this. Run blocking wise though, Jacksonville number 8, Philadelphia 24, indicative that they could be successful running the ball. Again, that's on the backs mainly of Tank Bigsby, but Philadelphia improving in this particular category recently. I think that defense is starting to gel and be a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season. Defensive run, DVOA for Philly 17, Jacksonville 14 on offense, slightly in the favor of their offense there, but really in terms of the better of the two matchups, it does look like it's the run game, but I just don't think Jacksonville is going to be keeping pace. They are a really terrible defense. I think they're going to be down in this and have to pass the ball a little bit more. If they're getting under pressure, you might see some targets to the running back. That's more Travis Etienne's territory. Take a peek at him for some pass catches if he does play. I think his line might be super low in terms of, hey, it might be 1.5 receptions. I think he can reach that in a game like this. Philadelphia, 28 in offensive pass protection, Jacksonville 29. So I think Philly has more time than they're used to throwing the ball in this matchup. Not going to take a ton of sacks. And then in terms of explosive plays, Jacksonville 32 on defense. Stone worst, absolutely terrible. They play a lot of man-to-man. They're getting roasted. Philadelphia number 17 in the pass DVOA, so middle of the pack there. Heavily in the favor, though, yet even with this Jacksonville team. So I think this benefits A.J. Brown a ton with the man-to-man matchups, but him and Devonta Smith should be excellent in this. Very explosive plays probably incoming for this. Whether or not it gets spread out, certainly just had a Devonta Smith week versus an A.J. Brown for touchdowns, but either one of them could have a monster week this week. And then in the run category, we have 19 for run blocking in Philly, number 10 for Jacksonville, so a pretty decent favor of Jacksonville's defense in that. But then the run DVOA is number 3 for Philadelphia, and then Jacksonville is number 11. I think the run DVOA also includes quarterbacks, where the run blocking is strictly related to how the running back does, trying to isolate the offensive line for the running back. So keep that in mind. Doesn't include anything with the quarterback. So really this is maybe more indicative of what the run game truly looks like for Philadelphia versus this, including the quarterback rushing in that category. So tush pushes and all that's going to make this run DVOA look a little bit better. In reality, I think Barkley maybe not as effective as you would otherwise think against a poor Jacksonville defense. I think Philly is going to pass the ball. That's how you're going to want to attack it. Don't be shocked if you see some more Jalen Hurts touchdowns on the ground as well. And then Jacksonville probably needing to get the ball out a little bit quicker, and 12, 15 targets for Evan Ingram. He's wheels up this week. All right, the 9th best game on the slate here, Chicago heading into Arizona. Arizona 1.5-point home favorites. It is a 44.5 Vegas game total, 9th best, as I had mentioned on the slate. The team implied total for Arizona, 23. That is the 13th best on the main slate. Chicago at 21.5 is 17th best team implied total. On the Chicago offensive side, they're 31st in offensive pass protection. Fortunately for them, Arizona doesn't really get after the quarterback too well. They're number 25 in that. I would suggest that Chicago will have a little bit of extra time to throw the ball than they're otherwise used to. Offensive pass DVOA, Chicago number 22, Arizona 29th in the defensive pass DVOA. So this is another situation where I don't think Caleb Williams has necessarily figured it out in his rookie season, but he's playing a terrible defense, and we've seen him be successful against these really, really bad pass defenses. I don't know if Arizona is necessarily in the really, really bad, but they are in the really bad category. So I think we'll see some success here in Chicago's pass game against this Arizona squad, a little bit more than we've seen against other teams this year. And then in the run blocking side, Chicago number 25, and then number 21 in the run DVOA categories. Arizona pacing them there. Number 22 in run stopping, number 15 in run DVOA. So really based off of this, Chicago may be a little bit more successful in the run game than they otherwise have been against a middling to poor run defense here, but it's not a particularly great matchup. Maybe one where I'm avoiding Swift a little bit, although I do know Arizona gives it up to running backs in terms of fantasy points. On the Arizona offensive side, pretty good in the pass categories. Number 4 in offensive pass protection, number 7 in offensive pass DVOA. Unfortunately for them, Chicago number 9 in pass rush, number 6 in pass DVOA. Probably going to find it a little bit more difficult for Arizona to move the ball in the air. Usually in these situations, I think you're going to say, hey, this is pretty even up. This maybe have to get the ball out a little bit quicker. You're going to be looking at studs eat and getting it out a little bit quicker. I think that's really going to favor the tight end in this. So you're looking at Trey McBride with a better game. And then the studs eat. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. could see his fair share of a decent game in this, but no super high ceiling. But I think he will have a solid game where you feel comfortable if he's in your starting lineup, producing 14, 15 fantasy points in PPR setting. Run blocking for Arizona, number 17 and 20. Chicago, not very good at stopping the run at 20 and 22. Arizona's been middle of the pack, obviously, as these numbers suggest. I think they're going to be pretty successful running the ball here with James Conner in this particular matchup. So I don't think Conner is a bad play against Chicago, although I don't think Arizona is going to move the ball particularly well. I don't think, Chicago, these aren't great matchups. They're better than, the defenses are subpar. The offenses are good, and they're pretty even matchups. So when the offense is pretty poor, the defense is pretty poor. And then when the offense is good, the defense is good in that category. So it's kind of a wash across the board for all of these. A lot of times in this, you might see a lot of field goals where the offense can move, and then it kind of stalls out just because there's no real huge benefit there. That can be overcome by some studs on offense on either side, but I'm not sure that's the case in this particular matchup. I do like the kickers here. Arizona's a dome. Wouldn't be shocked to see 4 to 7 field goals come out of this game just based off of this information. Both teams do play pretty quick. They're both top 10 in both overall pace and neutral pace situations. So keep that in mind. Lots of opportunities there for them to maybe stall out and kick those field goals. 10th best game on the slate, we have Washington heading into New York as 4-point road favorites on a 44 Vegas game total. As I mentioned, 10th best one on the slate. That gives Washington 24 for their team implied total, 11th best on this main slate. And New York Giants at 20 is the 21st ranked on the slate. Getting into the Washington offensive pass protection, they're number 15, exactly middle of the pack there. The Giants, though, number 1 in defensive pass rush. They're very able to get after the quarterback, very good at that aspect this year. I expect them to get some pressure on the quarterback here, so don't be shocked if you see a lot of Jaden Daniels run attempts or rush attempts, scramble attempts, whatever you want to call it. In this particular matchup, do they adjust how they play defense? They already played in week 2, and we saw them actually be pretty good in the pass category on offense, but on defense, they did hold Washington without a touchdown. Does that continue in this particular game? Do they learn stuff? I don't know, but I expect Jaden Daniels to have some rush attempts. In terms of the pass DVOA, though, Washington's been very explosive. We know the story behind that. They've been pretty good in that category, rookie quarterback, McLaurin unlocked, all what have you. But Giants, number 16, so middle of the pack there in pass DVOA, big favor of Washington. So expect them to be explosive when they do get pass plays off. They just might need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, or you might see Jaden Daniels rush attempts go up in this matchup. The run game, though, seems to be where it's at. Washington number 7 in offensive run blocking, and then number 7 in run DVOA, where the Giants are 19th and 20th. I expect Brian Robinson to have a very good game here. Jaden Daniels, when he runs, should also be pretty good in this category. So those would be the 2 guys I'm focusing on from Washington. Probably Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson. If there's going to be a surprise in the pass game, it's going to have to get out quick. You're going to see some dump offs to Eckler, but I think Zach Ertz also able to be started in this. On the Giant side, 20th in offensive pass protection, we now have Washington at number 4. They should be able to get after Daniel Jones. It's going to be a similar concept. He's probably going to need some quicker throws, get the ball out a little bit quicker. You're probably going to see some scramble attempts. I think when they played each other last, he had like 20, 50, somewhere in there, rush yards, or 30 or 50 rush yards. So I think we might see similar numbers here for him in this. Washington improving, but they're number 20 now on defensive pass DVOA. Used to be one of the worst in the league when they started. Now very much more improved now that we're a little bit further along in the season. The Giants bottom 10 at number 25. A little bit closer there, but still in the favor of Washington's defense. The run game, Washington number 26 and 24. That's in the red. The Giants a little bit better than them at 21 and 17. If the Giants are going to be successful moving the ball, it's going to be in the run game. Tyrone Tracy seems to be the guy there. He's legit. He seems like he is a very good running back in the NFL. He's looked phenomenal. Results on the field. He passes the eye test. He's passing the statistical test. He just looks like he's going to be a good NFL running back. So I think that's going to be the guy that you're going to want to focus on. Don't be shocked if he gets a few targets too, being under pressure here. Who's going to get those targets? Probably a lot of Wan'Dale Robinson in this matchup. You're going to see Neighbors force-fed the ball, and then maybe some dump-offs to the running backs and tight ends, but that's going to be kind of 3rd or 4th. Theo Johnson and Tracy more in line for that stuff. Both teams play a little bit slow. 25th in offensive neutral situation for Giants, 22nd for Washington. Wouldn't expect a ton of plays in this for people to necessarily get sacked, but an interesting one here. I know Giants are pretty cheap on both sites for DFS in terms of what this is considering. So I think they're going to be an okay play here. It's just the run game, I think, is going to be how Washington moves the ball, and it looks like they're going to be super successful there. So keep that in mind. I don't think the Giants are necessarily going to have a ton of opportunities for sacks. But it could lead to a turnover. You never know who gets a pick 6. There could be worse options on defense for somebody cheap. Then perhaps surprisingly, we're still, 43.5 isn't a great Vegas game total, but it is the 11th best on the slate this particular week. Sometimes that's like 3rd or 4th best, depending on the matchups. But yeah, 11th best on the slate at 43.5. Seems like it's going to be a high scoring slate this week. Just keep that in mind. You're probably going to need a pretty high score this week. We did see the first 3 games look like they're going to be absolute smashes, which is good to see as well. But anyway, this game, 11th best on the slate at 43.5. We have New Orleans, actually 7-point road favorites. The 2-win road team heading in as 7-point road favorites. I don't know how long or how often that has been seen in NFL history, but interesting there. It gives New Orleans a 25.25 team implied total, which is actually 7th best on this slate. Carolina 18.25 is 25th, so second worst team on this main slate. New Orleans offense, 19 in pass protection. Carolina, they basically are worst or second to the worst in every category on defense. 31, 31, 32, and 31. So keep that in mind. They're bad across the board. So we'll just look at New Orleans offense. Number 19 in pass protection, 26th in pass DVOA. They're 15th in run blocking and 13th in run DVOA. The run game is the better of the 2 matchups. New Orleans is super heavily favored, so it looks like the run game is going to be super heavily involved in a particular matchup like this. So Alvin Kamara, if you need that ceiling, I think he can get there in this. New Orleans does play fast. They're 6th in overall pace of play, 8th in neutral situation. Just keep that in mind. So it could be a good game there for Alvin Kamara. Multi-touchdowns, I think, is certainly in play. We have Derek Carr coming back. We could see a repeat of week 1 where New Orleans just boat raced Carolina. Had a really good offensive output, and Carolina couldn't move the ball. On the pass protection side, they should have a decent amount of time to throw the ball, and they should be otherwise a little bit more explosive than they've been recently with Derek Carr coming back. I'd expect Chris Olave to have a really good game here, and don't be shocked if Alvin Kamara gets involved in some dump-offs. And then I'm not sure who you're going to want outside of Chris Olave in that pass game. I think we're going to see a lot of targets come his way from Mr. Derek Carr going into this with Rashid Shaheed out now. On the Carolina side, 9th in offensive pass protection, 21st in defensive pass rush for New Orleans. This is suggestive that Carolina might actually have some time to throw the ball in this. The Saints haven't been particularly great in that category, it looks like. Problem is Carolina is number 31 in pass DVOA, New Orleans number 13. So even though they'll have time, I wouldn't expect them to be super explosive. They're out a bunch of their top receivers. They traded away Deontay Johnson. They don't have Adam Thielen back yet. The surprise play, I think, is Jalen Coker. It's him and Xavier Legette that will be the main focus here of their offense moving forward, or at least in this particular game. On the run blocking side, New Orleans, number 30 and number 32 in the run blocking or run stopping categories for defense. Carolina actually number 3 in offensive run blocking. They're in the bottom 10 at 23 in the run DVOA, but this is telling me that Carolina should be able to run the ball on New Orleans. New Orleans also should be pretty good on offense, but Chuba Hubbard could be interesting here if Carolina's got time to throw. We don't otherwise have wide receivers getting open. I don't know how good Xavier Legette is at that. Jalen Coker actually very, very good. He's got some really good pass game scores from PFF. Route running grades. He seems like he's legit. If you follow this account, you know Jalen Coker was one of our targets when the machine learning models came out for all the rookie prospects. So consider that a checkbox for success on Jalen Coker there. But yeah, I like Chuba Hubbard in this. I think Coker is certainly somebody you can look into who can maybe overcome this bad matchup, and he seems like he's legit. But yeah, otherwise could be ugly here for Carolina. Pass game could really struggle, which doesn't open up that run game very well with Bryce Young in there. But I think Hubbard is in okay play. If you have to start him, I don't know if there's going to be 1,000 better options than him in this week. I think he's going to be a top 24 running back and capable of getting into your starting lineups. All right, 2 more games here on the main slate. We have Chargers heading into Cleveland, 12th best game environment here, 42.5 Vegas game total. Chargers 1.5 point road favorites, giving them a 22 team implied total. Cleveland at 20.5 for their team implied total. 15th and 19th best on the slate for those two teams respectively. On the Chargers side, number 24 in offensive pass protection, taking some sacks. Cleveland good at getting after the quarterback. Number 10 in defensive pass rush. Probably going to need to get the ball out quickly here in Cleveland for the Chargers here. They're going to get that ball out a little bit quicker. It's probably going to be Will Dissly. Probably going to see some Ladd McConkey targets, and probably going to see some targets head over to the running back, J.K. Dobbins, and maybe Kamani Vidal gets a little bit involved in that. But pass DVOA, though, Chargers middle of the pack at 15. I think they are improving, ascending in that category. Cleveland at number 21 in the defensive pass DVOA. They've been otherwise okay to pass against. So I really think this is one that favors more of a McConkey type week. If you think Dissly gets involved just because they need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, I think that also kind of tracks here. The run blocking side, though, Chargers number 29, pretty poor there. Cleveland number 3 in run stopping. Indicative that we're going to see maybe a lot of negative plays here on the Chargers in terms of, behind the line of scrimmage or 0 to 4 yard type of runs, and not a ton beyond that. In terms of the run DVOA, we have Chargers at 22, Cleveland at 16. That's a little bit closer. J.K. Dobbins is maybe a fade. I know he was really good at the beginning of the season. Even though the Chargers are favorite here, I just don't see this run game being particularly great. The pass game matchup isn't phenomenal. They're going to need to get the ball out quick, but the pass game is the better of the two options. I'm okay actually fading Dobbins in this particular matchup. I don't think he's going to be very good this week. I did take him out of my starting lineup, and I have guys like Chuba Hubbard in there for him. Chase Brown is ahead of him. I also have James Cook, who I think is a lock for my starting lineup, and I actually have Dobbins out of the starting lineup for me in a standard league, suggestive that I don't know if he scores in this game. So Cleveland on offense, 32 and 32 in the pass categories. This is bound to change after Deshaun Watson's poor performance. He's out now. We do have Jameis Winston in there. Certainly a lot better, but the Chargers have been good in the pass category. So number 12 in pass rush. Nothing to write home about. They should be able to get after the quarterback, though, here in Cleveland, which could lead to quite a few turnovers. Sound like, hey, we saw Jameis Winston have a very good fantasy game, but there was like 3 or 4 dropped interceptions from Baltimore. Do the Chargers make those same mistakes? Probably not. Chargers defense, I think, actually in play here. Cleveland, I don't know. They're not necessarily a fast team. Chargers not necessarily a fast team either, but we could see some really boneheaded Jameis mistakes here in that pass game if it goes down that route. Pass DVOA for Chargers 7th, Cleveland 32nd there, but keep that in mind. They could see a pick six in this. Jameis he gives those up like candy. It is just a few days after Halloween. He might feel like he's in the spirit there. Chargers on stopping the run, not very good. 25th, but then 14th in the run DVOA. Cleveland 27th and 27th. Probably a byproduct of just how bad the offense was in general without Jameis Winston in there. I think these numbers may be a little bit more in favor of Cleveland than this otherwise looks on paper. Same with the pass game, but the pass game is not a good look. If Cleveland's going to be moving the ball, it's going to be on the ground if they want to be successful. The Chargers not necessarily great in that aspect, it looks like, but really an ugly game here. If you're attacking DFS, I'm not super interested in anyone maybe outside of Ladd McConkey or the Chargers defense in here. I think Cleveland's going to struggle. I think the Chargers are going to struggle. It's just going to be a gross game. It is one of the lowest game totals on the slate for a reason. And final game on the main slate, ugly New England heading into Tennessee. Tennessee, as bad as they are, 1-win team. They are actually 3.5-point home favorites here. 38 Vegas game total, down for 4.5 points from the last game that we saw, which looked ugly. The 3.5-point home favorite Tennessee puts them at 20.75 as the home favorite. That's only 18th best on the slate. And then the Patriots at 17.25 is the worst on the main slate. Offensive pass protection, if you look here, red across the board for New England's offense, 30th in pass protection, 27th in pass DVOA, 26th in run blocking, 31st in run DVOA. really, really bad, and Tennessee is green in 3 of those categories. So defensive pass rush, number 6 versus 30. They're going to get after the quarterback pretty easily here. Lots of sack opportunities. Heads up, New England quarterbacks. And then pass DVOA number 12 for Tennessee, the only one not green, but New England 27. Not a good matchup there, but it is the best of the 2. And then the run blocking, New England 26th, 31st, as I had mentioned. Tennessee number 1 and number 6. So do not expect a very good game out of the run game for New England. This is probably going to be one of those super duds for Ramondre Stevenson. The only way he gets fantasy points is because Tennessee is under siege on those New England quarterbacks, and they're giving him 6 or 7 targets on dump-offs. He might catch 6 or 7 of those for 8 yards total. I think it's going to be one of those games for New England here based off of this. Tennessee defense, very good play. If they're on your waivers, you can certainly pick them up. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair for New England here. On the Tennessee side, they are almost red across the board on offense, but fortunately for them, New England is red across the board on defense. So red across the board on offense and defense. Not a very good team there in New England. So pass protection, 23rd for Tennessee, 26th for New England. Pretty even there, but Tennessee probably has a little bit more time to pass the ball than they're otherwise used to. Watch out for any injury reports there. I think if we do have a healthy Will Levis, he will play in this game. Just keep that in mind. If he's not healthy, maybe Tennessee sees this matchup. They say, hey, give it one more week rest. I think we can get by with Mason Rudolph in this against this defense. I think we'll be fine. Maybe that's what they say. Will Levis might not play. Pass DVOA 29, New England 30. That's kind of the studs eat scenario. Kelvin really certainly looked good in the stat box last week. He would probably benefit from a matchup like this week. Run blocking, number 22 for Tennessee, the only one that's not red, and that's only by 1 there. 23 is a red. New England 28, so 28 on defense, 22 on offense. In the favor here of Tennessee, we do have Tajay Spears ruled out. So Tony Pollard looking good, especially if New England can't move the ball. Tennessee probably going to be running the ball quite often. If they're a little bit better in the pass game, they're probably going to just be methodically moving the ball down the field and eventually letting Tony Pollard run it into the end zone. On the run DVOA aspect, Tennessee number 26, New England 29. Again, studs eat type of scenario. I don't think Pollard necessarily falls into that category, but he looks like the best matchup out of this. Doesn't look good for New England for sure. I think Tennessee is going to be okay on offense moving the ball against this bad this bad New England defense. I think Kelvin Ridley, potentially Will Levis if he plays, and Tony Pollard are viable options to put in the starting lineup this week. And last but not least, we do have the Monday Night Football game here, so island game matchup. Kansas City 9-point home favorites on a 45.5 point Vegas game total, giving them a 27.25 team implied total. Tampa Bay at 18.25. Not very well, not very good there. So island game matchup, 45.5. That's an okay one. Maybe where I'm looking, maybe only at one defense or a kicker of some sort if the matchup calls for it. Otherwise, I'm probably looking for the offensive players in a matchup like this where you could get some points put on the board where a defense or a kicker isn't going to be optimal in the top 6. With that being said, Tampa Bay number 17 in pass protection, Kansas City number 22 in pass rush. Tampa Bay should be a standard day at the office, maybe a little bit of time to throw the ball. Pass DVOA, though, for Tampa Bay, top 10, pretty good. Kansas City, good at shutting it down, though, at number 8, losing all of your top players. I think it's going to be Cade Otton getting involved. Jalen McMillan, we might see with quite a few targets as well. I just don't know how successful they're going to be on those attempts or those targets that they see come their way. Just as a heads up, seems like a pretty even matchup there. Okay time to throw the ball, but who are they going to throw it to? And it looks like Tampa Bay may struggle a little bit moving the ball in the air, even though they have some decent time. Could just lead to some more Baker Mayfield scrambles, to be honest. Maybe he's going to have a low rushing prop line. I think he might beat that, especially if they're down and needing to pass. Offensive run blocking, Tampa Bay number 12. Kansas City, though, very good on stopping the run, number 2 and number 2. Tampa Bay number 9 in offensive run DVOA, but again, Kansas City very good. So where Tampa Bay seems to be good, Kansas City seems to be strong as well. So unfortunately, that doesn't look good for Tampa Bay scoring points or any of their run game options. If you got Rashad White or any of those guys, not looking like a particularly great matchup. White does get involved in the pass game, but I don't think it's going to be enough based off of this matchup to be in your optimal lineup, and I don't know what those prices are off the top of my head right now. Kansas City, offensive side, number 11 in pass protection. Tampa Bay, number 16. Slight favor of Kansas City, but similar to Tampa Bay, just going to be standard day at the office. You're going to have some normal time to throw the ball. Kansas City, number 14 in the offensive pass DVOA. Tampa Bay, number 19. Tampa Bay has been really giving it up, I think, fantasy point-wise to the quarterback. So don't be shocked if, based off of this, on paper, it doesn't look great. Slightly in the favor of Kansas City, but I think in reality, in terms of fantasy points scored, it's been pretty good against Tampa Bay in the pass game. So keep that in mind. In the run game, Kansas City number 4, Tampa Bay 12th in stopping the run. And then Kansas City number 8 in run DVOA, Tampa Bay number 10. To be honest, this is slightly in both Kansas City's favor, but then in the run game, this is a little bit heavy in favor, but the run DVOA a little bit closer. So in general, it looks like Kansas City's offense, just a better situation. Tampa Bay going to be struggling to move the ball. Kansas City should be okay moving the ball. I don't know if I necessarily agree with Kansas City hitting 28 points in this, but if Tampa Bay, based off of this, it's going to be close, but from what I know, Tampa Bay just gives it up in the pass. I think Kansas City is going to be just fine passing the ball. Don't be shocked if we see DeAndre Hopkins have an okay game here, getting involved. Wouldn't be shocked either if Xavier Worthy actually they connect on a deep bomb. Based off of this, I don't think Tampa Bay necessarily super good at stopping that. But then the run game looks like Kareem Hunt probably going to score in this. Just in general, Kansas City probably going to be up. We should see him with quite a bit of volume in this particular matchup. Tampa Bay does play really slow. Kansas City, 17th overall, but number 10 in neutral situation pace of play. Keep that in mind. Nothing really to write home about. I don't know really how to attack this game. I think that's fine to say. It doesn't look, nothing in here is screaming out to me like you got to get this person in your captain spot, anything like that. Kansas City defense might be in play, although it doesn't look like they're going to generate a lot of sacks. They just might have opportunities to get after the quarterback or get interceptions, strip sacks. It doesn't look like that's going to be a dominant part of their game, but maybe they're just going to have more opportunities. But Tampa Bay does play slow, so how many opportunities are they really going to have? On the Kansas City side, it's an okay matchup all around. Do you want Mahomes in there as a distributor? Well, I don't know if he's going to be that good against this Tampa Bay pass attack. If that's the case, do I just want to get a DeAndre Hopkins or a Xavier Worthy in that captain spot, a Kareem Hunt in that captain spot, because it looks like he's just going to have the volume, and we know, he's probably the most likely out of anybody to score a touchdown that's not passing in this particular matchup. It's a weird one to go. I'll have to look at the price points and see who I can all squeeze in there, but it looking like one of those Kansas City 5, Tampa Bay 1 player type of things, where maybe it's just Cade Otton from Tampa Bay or a really cheap Jalen McMillan if he's cheap. One of those guys from Tampa Bay that are cheaper, and then try to squeeze in as many good Kansas City players as you can. Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Mahomes, Kelsey, Kareem Hunt. Try to do what you can to get all of those studs in there with maybe a cheap Tampa Bay player. So that might be the key to success on this one. Really, it's going to rely on that pricing and how you build out that team. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Adjusted Line Play Report on Week 9. Thanks for sticking with us this entire time. Big slate here, only 2 games on bye, which, to be honest, who are they? Pittsburgh and San Francisco on bye. These are their numbers if you wanted to see them. But yeah, that's going to do it for Week 9. All done. Hopefully we can go win some money together. That's what it's all about. always going to be free for you folks to have all of this info. I'll get it out to you every week, provided I don't have any family or personal things going on that will take me away from my recording activities. Either way, I can get the spreadsheet out on Twitter. So give it a follow over there at Toddzilla1337. And that's going to do it. Let's have a good one, folks. Let me know if you go win some money out there based off of this information. I plan on doing that. So peace. Have a good one.